They say success is external, that it's something you chase, something you build with your hands, stack on your shoulders, wear like a crown, but the world has it backward. You don't build the empire first, you build the mind, because the empire cannot rise where the foundation is weak, and the foundation is you. The empire you dream of will not answer to luck. It won't bow to your excuses or your fears or the small voice in your head that says, maybe I'm not enough. It only answers to one thing: a mind that refuses to be ruled by anything other than purpose. Before the buildings go up, before the team assembles, before the world sees even one flicker of your light, you must do the hidden work, the hard work, the mental work, not the kind that gets likes, not the kind that's pretty or polished or easy to post, but the kind done in silence, with blood in your teeth and fire in your chest, the kind of work where you rip out old beliefs like weeds in a garden you've neglected for too long, the kind where you face the mirror and finally stop lying to yourself about what you're capable of. This is where the empire is born, because the world doesn't need more noise. It needs more people who are rooted, people who don't collapse every time the wind changes, people who have trained their minds like warriors train their bodies, with discipline, with strategy, and with absolute refusal to break. Your empire isn't built on vision boards and lucky breaks. It's built on the decision to become someone who cannot be stopped. And it begins with mindset, because if you can't command your own thoughts, how will you ever command your destiny? Thoughts become patterns. Patterns become habits. Habits become character. And character becomes fate. So the question is not, what do you want? The question is, who are you becoming while you want it? When your mind is weak, your dreams will always stay locked behind the door of what if. But when your mind is strong, you become the key. Everything you want already exists, but you'll never reach it from a place of fear, hesitation, or self-pity. Empires are not built with soft hands or soft minds. They're built by those who are willing to do what most people avoid their entire lives. Look inward. The world has fed you a lie since the moment you could walk, that you need more information, more approval, more time, more resources. But you don't need more. You need less noise and more clarity. You need to remove the distractions, remove the opinions, remove the endless cycle of overthinking, and start deciding, start choosing. Start acting like your life belongs to you, and no, because it does. You were not born to drift. You were not born to merely exist. You were born with the raw materials of something that could shake the earth, but only if you choose to forge it. And forging doesn't happen by accident. You must become intentional with your focus. You must become the kind of person who protects their vision like a flame in the wind. Because without focus, you are divided. And a divided mind cannot build anything that lasts. Focus is how you begin to take power back. It's how you silence the internal chaos. It's how you shift from being a passive observer of life to being its architect. When your mind is clear, your steps follow. When your focus is sharpened, your path reveals itself. And when your thoughts are aligned with purpose, that's when the world begins to bend in your direction. But clarity isn't a gift. It's a choice, a war, a daily battle to pull yourself out of the fog and into the fire. Most people will never find it because they're too addicted to distractions, too comfortable in confusion, too afraid of what they'll find if they dig deeper than the surface. But you're not most people. You're here because something inside you is tired of smallness, tired of delay, tired of settling for fragments of a life you know you were meant to live in full. You're here because part of you knows. You don't just want success, you want transformation. And transformation begins the moment you stop waiting for permission and start building from within. The empire you're dreaming of doesn't need a map, it needs a maker. And that maker is you. You will never have a moment when the stars align perfectly. There is no ideal time. There is no right mood. There is only right now. And the decision to become the version of you who no longer waits, the version who wakes up with fire, the version who treats discipline as a non-negotiable, the version who doesn't need applause, who doesn't need comfort, who doesn't need proof before moving, the version who moves first because belief, real belief, is built in motion, not in theory, not in books, not in talk. It is forged through movement, through momentum, through the daily decision to act like your future depends on it, because it does. You don't need motivation. You need responsibility. You need ownership. You need the kind of fire that doesn't flicker when things get hard, because they will. But hard is not your enemy. Hard is your proving ground. The empire is not for the faint of heart. It will test you. It will stretch you. It will break parts of you that were never meant to last anyway. And that's a good thing, because what you shed on the path is not your loss, it's your liberation. You're not here to stay the same, you're here to evolve. And that evolution is fueled by action. Small, consistent, aligned action. Not just big leaps, but daily steps. Not just grand declarations, but quiet choices made when no one's watching. That's how you build it. That's how you rise. That's how you take control of a life that's waiting for you to wake up and lead it. This is not about hustle culture. This is not about grinding until you collapse. This is about becoming someone who can no longer live with the weight of untapped potential. Because you've tasted what it's like to hold back, you've lived enough days ignoring the pull, and now you're ready to answer it. Because something inside you is done waiting, done watching, done wondering, and that something, that fire, is the start of everything. That fire is not random, it's the original signal. It's the whisper that says there is more. Not more things, not more attention, but more depth, more alignment, more becoming. You're not just building a life, you're building a mental kingdom. A fortress so rooted in clarity and truth that no storm can shake it. A place where self-respect is non-negotiable. Where discipline walks the halls like a king and excuses are banished from the throne. But here's the truth, you won't get there by trying to be everything. You get there by becoming one thing. Solid, unshakable, directed, because the mind that builds an empire must be stronger than the world that tries to distract it. And the only way to build that mind is to strip away everything that keeps you weak, the doubt, the overthinking, the comparison, the fake humility that keeps you from owning your power. You must burn it. And in its place, you build. You build the mindset of someone who expects greatness, not because of ego, but because they've worked for it, because they've earned it in the dark, because they've refused to abandon themselves. You build the mindset that does not flinch at pressure, that meets resistance not with retreat, but with readiness, that welcomes the weight because it knows the heavier the load, the stronger you grow. You don't fear the pain, you use it. You don't run from the obstacles, you study them. You don't avoid the struggle, you respect it, because it's the only forge hot enough to make you unbreakable. The world around you will try to convince you that success is about tactics, strategies, shortcuts, but it's not. Success is a mirror, and the mirror only reflects what you are, not what you pretend to be, not what you wish for, not what you talk about at parties, but what you do, who you are when no one is clapping, who you are when it's not glamorous, who you are when all you have is belief and grit. This is what builds the empire, not the outer game, but the inner architecture. So ask yourself, Is your mind built to withstand what you're asking for? Are you prepared to carry the weight of vision? Or are you still negotiating with your limitations, still asking for guarantees, still waiting for signs? There is no sign coming. You are the sign. You are the answer you've been searching for. You are the permission. You are the key that unlocks the life you're dreaming of, but only if you're willing to stop asking for proof and start acting like your word means something. The empire begins when your thoughts are no longer wild animals running loose, but soldiers trained, sharp, and loyal to your mission. You cannot afford a mind that wanders. You cannot afford thoughts that betray you in private, because every great rise begins with mental sovereignty, the decision to take full command of your inner world, no matter what the outer world looks like. You may not control the storm, but you control your anchor. And those who control their inner world eventually control their outer one. That's the law, because energy flows where attention goes, and empires are built not by chance, but by concentrated attention, sustained effort, and relentless self-mastery. You want wealth? Focus. You want freedom? Discipline. You want peace? Alignment. It all comes back to the mind. When your mind is right, your path gets lighter. When your mind is right, you stop chasing and start attracting. You stop surviving and start creating. You stop hiding and start owning. And it's not about confidence, it's about conviction. Confidence comes and goes, but conviction stays. It is the quiet force that drives your feet forward even when your hands are shaking. It is the internal compass that doesn't bend to public opinion or the fear of failure. Conviction is born when you make a decision that there is no going back, that you're all in, that you'd rather fail being real than succeed being hollow, because that's what separates the empire builders from the dreamers. Decision. The decision to rise even if you don't feel ready. The decision to execute even when you're scared. The decision to keep moving even when the world offers you every excuse to quit. You don't need comfort. You need momentum. You don't need more time. You need more intensity. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be committed. Because the moment you commit, the moment you really decide, the world begins to shift around you. Not because it owes you anything, but because it responds to those who refuse to stay asleep. Your life is waiting for you to wake up. So build. Build with thought. Build with faith. Build with action that does not flinch when the path gets unclear, because it will get unclear. But you don't need perfect clarity to take the next step. You just need direction and discipline. And the belief that the empire is already yours, you're just walking toward it. Let others waste time trying to predict the future. You create it. You carve it out of the day, out of the hour, out of this exact moment with your attention, your focus, and your refusal to stay the same. The greatest illusion is that you need to see the whole staircase before you take the first step. You don't. You only need the courage to step forward and the discipline to keep going when the lights go out, because they will. There will be days when everything feels quiet, when progress feels invisible, when the voice in your head whispers, maybe this isn't working. But that's not a sign to stop. That's the moment you're being tested, because the empire doesn't rise in celebration. It rises in silence, in the hours when no one is watching, in the work that no one applauds, in the mindset that no one can see, but that builds everything. You want to become unstoppable? Then stop tying your identity to results. You are not the money in your account. You are not the opinions in their mouths. You are not the trophies, the followers, the feedback. You are the force behind all of it. You are the root. And when the root is strong, the tree will stand. no matter the wind. So stop asking if you're worthy. Stop negotiating your power. Stop waiting to feel ready. You were born ready. You were born with the spark. What you need now is refinement. Sharpen your focus until it cuts through excuses. Sharpen your habits until they run without thinking. Sharpen your standards until nothing subpar survives in your presence. Because a weak mindset attracts chaos. A strong one builds order. A powerful one creates empires. This isn't about being the best in the world. It's about being the best for your world, for your mission, for your future, for the life that is screaming to be born through your effort. But you can't just want it. You must become it. You must breathe it, walk with it, think with it, move with it, until the person you are and the future you crave are no longer separated by hope, but by inches. You close that gap not with luck, but with intention, not with talent, but with discipline, not with magic, but with mental engineering. You rewire your identity until action is your default. You uninstall the programs that run your fear. You remove the voices that taught you to play small, and you replace them with fire. The kind of fire that doesn't just warm, it builds. A fire that forges clarity. Because the clearer your vision, the louder your yes, and the easier it becomes to say no to what doesn't serve it. Clarity is not a luxury, it is your weapon. Without it, you chase. With it, you construct. Without it, you drown in distractions. With it, you rise in decisions. And clarity is not something you find, it's something you create through the act of elimination, through the removal of what's not aligned, through the refusal to let the noise of the world drown out the whisper of your calling. You know what's dangerous? Not the enemy outside, but the confusion inside. Because a man with no direction can be manipulated by anything. But a man with vision becomes immovable. Vision makes your why unshakable. It gives meaning to your suffering. It transforms every failure into data. It fuels your spirit on the days when your body wants to quit. But vision is nothing without discipline, without the repeated, ruthless consistency that says, I show up whether I feel like it or not, because feelings are fleeting, but outcomes are earned, and those who rise are not those who wait for motivation, they are those who act in its absence. They've trained themselves to execute without applause, to move without needing evidence, to trust the process when the path is invisible. This is what it means to build the mindset, not to live in fantasies, but to walk through fire with your head high and your eyes open. To say, if I must climb the mountain barefoot, bleeding, and alone, so be it. Because the top is reserved for those who didn't fold, those who didn't let their doubts become dictators, those who refused to let their current situation define their destiny. You were never meant to be average. That's why it feels so suffocating. You weren't built to settle. That's why your soul keeps agitating every time you shrink. It's not anxiety, it's misalignment. It's your potential protesting the lie you're living. It's your higher self demanding to be set free. So let it out, uncage it, let the weak thoughts die in the fire of your execution. Because at the end of the day, it's not about whether the world sees you, it's about whether you see you. Do you see who you are when the layers are stripped? Do you see the builder behind the hesitation? Do you see the empire inside the mind that's been trained to doubt? Because once you see it, once you really see it, there's no going back. There's no unseeing your power. There's no unfeeling your purpose. There's no unknowing the truth that you were made for more. And once that seed is planted, the empire becomes inevitable. But understand this, inevitability does not mean ease. It means you've decided. It means you no longer leave the door open for failure to walk in and unpack its bags. It means you rise even when you're tired. You speak life even when you're surrounded by doubt. You push forward even when every excuse is screaming louder than your faith. Because that's what mindset really is. It's not just positive thinking, it's powerful thinking. It's the decision to live by vision, not by circumstance. It's the inner command that says, this will bend to my will, or I will become unbreakable in the process. You don't beg for the outcome. You build yourself into the person who demands it, with presence, with posture, with relentless execution. Your empire isn't built in the future, it's built in your decisions today. Every time you choose discomfort over ease, every time you choose progress over pleasure, every time you choose character over convenience, you are laying bricks. Bricks that no one else sees right now, but one day they'll look up and wonder how you built so high. They'll talk about how lucky you are, how it just worked out for you. But you'll know it wasn't luck, it wasn't timing, it wasn't talent, it was the 1,000 invisible choices, the 10,000 quiet repetitions, the million moments you could have quit but didn't. It was the mindset that refused to be ordinary. And if you ever forget that, if you ever find yourself drifting back to mediocrity, tempted to lower your standards just to feel safe, remember, safety never built a legacy. It's the ones who risk being seen as delusional who changed everything, not because they were gifted, but because they were gritted, because they kept showing up even when the world told them to stop, because they chose alignment over approval, purpose over popularity, conviction over convenience. That's what building the empire demands. It doesn't care if you're tired. It doesn't care if you're scared. It doesn't care if the odds are stacked. It only asks one thing. Will you keep showing up as the person your vision requires? Will you still move when doubt shows up at your door? Will you still speak life when fear tries to choke your voice? Will you still build brick by brutal brick, even when progress is invisible? Because the real war isn't out there. It's in here. It's in the silent conversations between you and you. It's in the moment when quitting feels rational, when comfort feels deserved, when distractions feel justified. That's when warriors are born or broken. And if you want the empire, you must become the architect of your identity. You don't wait for belief, you build belief. You don't hope for clarity, you forge clarity. You don't wait for motivation, you train discipline. You condition yourself hour by hour, habit by habit, into the version of you who makes it inevitable. And here's the truth you've been avoiding. You already know what to do. You already feel it in your gut. You've always known. What's been missing isn't knowledge, it's command. The internal command that says, I don't negotiate with weakness anymore. I don't explain away my calling. I don't dilute my intensity just to fit in with a world that gave up on itself. You don't need more strategies. You need more self-leadership. The willingness to say, this is who I am now, and nothing is strong enough to pull me back. Because when the mind is built like a fortress, no opinion, no failure, no storm can tear down what you've constructed inside. And that's when the empire must follow. Not because you forced it, not because you chased it, but because you became it, because the world reflects not what you want, but who you are. You want the empire? Then be the mind that commands empires. Be the voice that echoes purpose. Be the force that moves without needing permission, because the ones who build what lasts aren't the ones with the best luck. They're the ones who made a vow to never break with themselves again. This is where most turn back, right here, at the edge, where the vision is still invisible, where the results haven't caught up to the work, where the voice of doubt becomes seductive, where the old identity claws at your ankles, whispers in your ear, and says, maybe you're not who you thought you were. This is where the average retreat. They justify, they downshift. They say, maybe I'll come back to this when things feel better, when I'm more ready, when I have more time. But the ones who build the empire, they double down, they dig deeper. They say, this is the test, this is the moment I've been trained for, and this is where I become untouchable. Because the truth is, nothing external can crown you. No status, no follower count, no shiny object of validation. Only you can declare who you are, and only you can live in alignment with that declaration long enough for the world to notice. You've got to hold the frequency of the future you before anyone else believes in it. You've got to act like the empire already exists, even when it's still dust and discipline. You've got to move like your dream is law, not a luxury. Because mindset is not just about thinking positive. It's about thinking powerfully. It's not soft, it's not gentle, it's savage, it's primal, it's war-tested. It's the steel you forge in isolation. It's the energy you protect with everything you've got. It's the voice that whispers, I will not go back to sleep on myself. Not this time. Because if you don't protect your mind, the world will program it for you. It will feed you fear. It will drown you in distraction. It will normalize delay, self-betrayal, half-hearted action. But you are not here to blend in with the culture of comfort. You are here to build, to construct an identity that cannot be shaken. And here's what nobody tells you. The empire is built long before it's seen. It begins in the moments when no one claps, when no one understands, when the only confirmation you get is the peace that comes from staying in integrity with your purpose. There are no shortcuts. There are no guarantees. Only one law. Build the mind or the world will build it for you. And if you think this is just about business, you've missed the point. This is about how you show up for life, for your health, for your family, for your values, for your truth. Because your empire isn't just brick and strategy, it's built on the unseen, the way you speak to yourself, the way you confront fear, the way you hold your standards when nobody's watching. That's where the real empire lives, not in the bank account, not in the brand, but in the backbone. You either train your mind to lead your life, or you stay a slave to the same patterns you swore you'd outgrow. There is no middle ground. Either your thoughts serve your future, or they sabotage it. And most people live in mental autopilot. They recycle the same loops, the same doubts, the same broken story dressed in new excuses. They think they're moving forward, but they're just walking in circles, wearing the mask of productivity. You were never meant for that. You were meant to lead, to rise, to break the loop, to trade addiction to ease for obsession with excellence. And that starts not with external change, but with internal war, the daily battle to discipline your emotions, to reject the illusion of later, to choose who you are over who you've been pretending to be. That's what it takes. Not talent, not luck, but a mind that is tuned to truth. You want to shift your life? Then shift what you tolerate. Shift what you say yes to. Shift the way you speak when no one is listening. Shift the energy you carry into every room, every call, every moment. Because the life you're living now is just a reflection of the standard you've been willing to accept. But the life you could be living, that starts the moment you raise that standard and refuse to lower it again. That's the switch. Not hoping, not wishing, but deciding that no matter what it takes, you will become the version of you who can carry the weight of the dream. The world doesn't need another person chasing the illusion of success. It needs you, see, fully switched on, fully embodied, fully unleashed, You don't need more plans. You need more presence. You don't need more steps. You need more self-trust. Because once the mind is forged in fire, once it's tested and tightened and trained in truth, there's not a damn thing on this earth that can stop what's coming. And what's coming is everything you were built for. And now you stand at the threshold, and not of a finish line, but of a new beginning, because real transformation doesn't come with applause. It doesn't come with fireworks or sudden clarity. It comes in silence. It comes in stillness. It comes in the sacred moment when you finally say, I am done living below my power. Not because someone told you to, not because you read it in a book, but because you felt what it costs to live misaligned, and you've decided that cost is no longer acceptable. You see, this was never about making it. This was about becoming it. The version of you that doesn't need the outside world to validate the mission because you are so deeply possessed by purpose, so unwavering in your inner compass, so devoted to the path of that success becomes a side effect, not a goal. And when that switch flips, when the mind becomes the throne, when you stop negotiating with mediocrity, when you look in the mirror and see a builder, not a dreamer, you become dangerous to everything that tried to keep you small, because now you're not seeking escape, you're seeking expansion. Now you're not addicted to outcomes, you're addicted to the craft. You're not chasing easy wins, you're sculpting a legacy. And that legacy won't be built in one grand gesture. It will be built in 1,000 unseen choices. The morning you wake up before you feel ready. The evening you stay in the fight when your energy says stop. The day you take the hard conversation instead of running. The moment you do the thing you said you'd do, even when no one's watching. That's how you build the empire. One standard at a time, one decision at a time. One moment of alignment after another, and each one adds a brick, each one adds weight, each one adds depth, until one day, not suddenly but inevitably, you realize you've become the kind of person who is simply unavailable for anything less than greatness. Not arrogant, not noisy, not boastful, just deeply, quietly, immovably certain of who you are and what you're building. That's the power of mindset. It doesn't scream, it doesn't beg, it simply leads. And when you lead yourself, when you become the architect of your own psychology, the empire follows. Not because it was handed to you, but because it had to. Because the world reflects the inner world, and you've made the inner world undeniable. So now you don't chase, you attract, you don't beg, you command. You don't collapse, you expand, because the empire is no longer a question, it's a consequence. The natural byproduct of a mind that refuses to break, a heart that refuses to close, and a soul that refuses to settle. This is your edge now. This is the line in the sand. No more half-built visions. No more playing both sides of potential. No more asking for permission to be powerful. It's time to decide what you will tolerate, what you will embody, what you will build, not just out there in the world, but inside the temple of your own mind. Because nothing will outlast that foundation, not fear, not delay, not resistance, not even time, all of it bows to the one who owns their mind, so build it, not in a rush, not for approval, but with precision, with intensity, with sacred discipline. Because once you build the mind, the empire will have no choice but to follow, and it will. One brick, one belief, one unshakable moment of clarity at a time. So stand up, stand firm, and build. The world doesn't need more noise, it needs use. Fully awakened, fully aligned, fully unstoppable. Because when the mind becomes the empire, everything else becomes inevitable.